Today's presentation is how to do federal market research in USASpending.gov. As I stated before, my name is Wendy Bray and my director, Anna Ehrman. We will be hosting this training for you today. Today's topics, we will cover why should you research, what should you research, navigating USA spending, understanding recipient profiles, and analyzing the data. For those of you who have been on this journey with us, this is a part of our market research series. And if you've been on this journey with us since October, you know what all of these trainings are leading up to, which is basically helping you, the small business, if you are not aware of it, with learning how to do market research, how to conduct market research, how to review that information that you have obtained during your market research, so that it can help you better prepare for, and I'm leading up to the next slide, buyer's insight, that competitive analysis, seeing what your competitors have out there, what makes your business different, why should the buyer buy from your business than your competitor, and then also identifying those partners, primes, or subcontractors. If you feel like your business doesn't have enough experience as of yet, and there may be those subcontracting opportunities that are out there, market research helps you with being able to identify and then also afterwards analyze that information. So when you gather the information, what you want to be able to look for is not just with customers is one, which you see over in the left-hand column, but also competitors and those teammates. When you're looking at the customers, for example, and I'll cover this in a few minutes, when you think about it in terms of I'm just starting off with a business, or I'm just deciding to start selling whatever type of product or service it may be, what agency, when we think in terms of federal government, what agency is actually buying what I am selling? Well, during that market research, you'll be able to identify that. Contact names, knowing your NAICS codes, product service codes, are just a few items that you want to look for. In terms of competitors, you want to look for the revenue, size, set aside, as well as their customers. That's just a little bit of information when you're conducting your market research, what to look for. Someone said that they cannot see the slides. I just want to stop for a second to make sure everyone is able to see the slides before I continue. Okay, perfect. All right, thank you. So now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to share my screen. And usually when I share my screen, because I've done this before, I already have a NAICS code. But today, what I want to do is I want to ask one of you if you could place the NAICS code, and we're going to do a search. We're going to conduct some market research in USA Spending today. And if you could just place the NAICS code in the chat, I'll choose one, and then we'll go ahead and start searching using that.
I see our professional services and IT friends represented very well.
Okay, there we go. Anna, is it possible you can give me one of the NAICS codes? My chat disappeared when I opened up and started sharing my screen.
Sure. Let's do 611699.
Thank you. Okay, so
did at random.
Okay. When we come to USA Spending, the first thing you want to do is you want to start searching awards. I'm sorry, give me 1 second. Okay, there we go. I apologize. So now I'm gonna go back and share my screen. Okay, there we go. Somehow I couldn't get out of the screen and see my own screen. Okay, So first thing that you want to do is you want to start searching awards. And when you click on it, all of this information is here. All of this information, the table is empty. So what you have to do is add the information. So on the left-hand side, you have all these different filters, all this different information you can filter by. I asked you for your NAICS code because what I'm going to do is first, I'm going to pretend that I'm the business, and I know for a fact my NAICS code is 611699. So I'm going to type in 611699, and all of these codes populate, and I'm going to scroll to the bottom and submit search. And what's going to happen is all of the contract, all of the spending with NAICS code 611699 will appear. So now that I have that information, one of the things is, like going back to the previous slide where I said when it comes to what to look for, customers in terms of government or your competitors. Let's just say right now we're looking for potential customers, location, contact names, the NAICS codes. We already know the NAICS codes because you gave it to me. So we already know what the NAICS codes are, but competition types, any of that type of information. What you can do is multiple tabs will lead you to various different directions, but I'm going to stick with identifying those contracts. Right now, all of the contracts are here, but let's just say 14,000. That's just a lot. And you want to slim it down a little bit. Click on categories. Immediately, the first category, because it's 4 different ones, awarding agency. From here, and let me know if this is it too small, the screen, Anna, or is it visible? Do I need to zoom in a little bit?
It's a
Yes.
little small, yeah.
How
Also,
about this?
folks, on your screens, right above where it's displaying Wendy's screen, there should be a little number with percentage, so you could increase your own zoom on your monitors by a bit.
Thank you, Anna. I don't see my bar to go over. So, okay. There we go. Okay, so what we're looking at right now is the agencies that are actually spending money, have spent money. And the reason I say have and spending is because I did not select the specific fiscal year, but they have spent money on buying, purchasing this NAICS code. Now it's listed in order of the agency that has spent the most money. So I see that DOD, Homeland Security, and state, and I'm looking at the top 3. So if during this market research, I decided, okay, what are my next steps going to be? Which agency am I going to approach? Instead of saying I'm going to approach all of these different agencies, or I'll even take it a step further. I really want to do business with Department of Energy. Looking at this information, you see how much the Department of Energy has spent or purchased or bought, whichever term you would like to use, with this NAICS code. But you see DOD, DHS, Department of State, they actually have spent more money. So the goal is to be able to, if this is your goal, but let's just say it's my goal. My goal is now to see, okay, which agency is spending that money, and now let me focus on what else do I need to see to be able to get there, to get in the building, to speak with the contracting officers, or even reaching out to the small business offices, looking at the information on USASpending.gov or some of the other free tools that are out there to take it a step further to be able to then begin identifying those opportunities that are there. So this is just the awarding agency. How about recipient? The next one. Now, we all know that small businesses are all different sizes. So when you think of a competitor in terms of, or a business, excuse me, in terms of them being your competitor, you don't want to look at a business that is 2-3 times bigger than your business. You want to look at those businesses, and that will require you to take a deeper dive as well into your potential competitors. But being able to identify those businesses that are on the same level as your business, and they are being awarded contracts, especially contracts with the agency that you're looking for. So let's just say, for example, I did not filter anything again. I didn't filter, excuse me, fiscal year. I did not filter the specific agencies. I did not, the only thing that I filtered was a NAICS code. So let's just say that now I have identified, going back to awarding agency, I have identified Department of Defense, DHS, and DOS. But I want to specifically just stick with DOD. So now I'll go in over to the filter side, and the agency, I'll type in DOD. And then submit search. And you're just taking it a step further. As I said, each time you're filtering to shorten that information, to get the information that you're looking for. And at the top where it says 2 active, it'll always say the number of active filters. Now it's filtering for DOD, and it's filtering for this specific NAICS code. Now I want to look at the recipient. The recipient information is going to pull those recipients specific to that NAICS code, specific to the Department of Defense. Also, if I go to the table, you see how the number changed. It's no longer 14,000 contracts. It's a little over 8,000 contracts. That's
Wendy,
going to
can I
shorten
hop
your
in?
list. Yes.
Can I jump in for a second? So Scott asked, what is the code that Wendy keeps referring to? And I think, Scott, sorry for calling you out. So the NAICS code, I think others may have the same question. It's the North American Industrial Classification System code. It's a way that, oh, can you go back, Wendy? Can you go back to that screen? I just want to show something. It's a way that the US government, as well as major industry indexes, different companies based on rough products or services that are offered. So as you see on the left of that screen, 611699, that's the 6-digit code. That's very incremental, schools and instruction. It's part of, if you look up the hierarchy, see the 6116, it's schools and instruction. And 61, the 2-digit top level code, is educational services. So it's a way to lump in products and services according to the different industries they fall into. So 61 is education, 51 is information, 54 is computer systems. There's travel and manufacturing and engineering and things like that. Okay, sorry to interrupt. Go on, please.
No, thank you, Anna. And I was getting ready to go to the census website. I believe this is the link we're going to see in a second. If for those individuals on the call, if you're not familiar with the NAICS code, if you don't know what your NAICS codes are, you can go to this website on the census website, and you can type in a keyword, not the NAICS code, for example, drill or construction or electric, electric vehicle. You can type that in, and I'll actually do it. And I know it's kind of leaving from USA Spending, and then it'll generate all of the NAICS codes for that year. They have 22, 2017, 2012, because ever so often, I'm not sure how often it's updated. The NAICS codes sometimes are done away with or merged together. So that's how you can be able to search for that information. Thank you, Anna, for that with the NAICS code. So coming back here, when you see the contract, it's less information for you to have to be able to review, because now you're filtering again. I'm filtering off of looking at DOD, looking at the NAICS code. And here are the contracts that are here, the contract information. If you wanted to, this is the recipient information. You can filter based off of the date, the start date, the end date to see the most recent, because as you can see, when you first pull this information, it's not going to be in any type of order. There is a scroll bar here at the top. If you scroll over, it'll actually tell you about the obligated amount, all the way down a lot of the other information, even the awarding sub-agency, because the awarding agencies are the big agencies, Department of Veteran Affairs, DOD, but specific with Department of Veteran Affairs, we have our other offices, such as Veterans Health Administration, the Cemetery Administration, Veterans Benefit Administration. So being able to then identify, all right, I have already identified the awarding agency, DOD. Now I'm able to identify, okay, which sub-agency of DOD? Is it Army? Is it the Defense Contract Management Agency? And then also the contract award type. that information can be assessed on here, on here as well. So what I want to do before I continue on is I'm going to reset this. And now, when I reset it, the information is gone. You can start all over again with searching for the specific information that you will be looking for. One of the things that I forgot to do is filter by fiscal year. So everything that you saw, those 8,000 contracts, those over 14,000 contracts, it was not filtered by fiscal year. So for example, if you did not want to take a really deep dive, especially with the way things changed around 21 and 2020, excuse me, and 21 and so forth now to present day, if you wanted to look and see how was the buying in 2008 or how was the buying in 2015, if you wanted to take a deeper dive, you could, with that information, go in and start filtering more off the fiscal year, or you could filter off the date range. The award type, if you were looking for something that was more specific. They has loans information and grant information, but I'm sticking today specifically with contracts. The location, if you're looking for some, opportunities, looking for those contracts that were closer to you. Recipients, if you know specifically about the recipient, let's just say you pulled the data and now you chose the top 3 and you're like, okay, I want to see, this is one way to do it. There are other ways to view the recipients, but I want to see some more, dig a little further about the recipients, my potential competitors, or even maybe my potential partners. You can be able to filter off of that information. Product service codes for those businesses that sell products. You can input your PSCs here, as well as set asides. If you're looking specifically, let's just say, for example, what all agencies are, have been awarded to specific veteran-owned small businesses or women-owned small businesses. Where are those contracts? Where's the information? You can pull that information by filtering from here as well. Okay, so now we're going to speak about downloading award versus transaction.
All right. Could you please go back a slide, or back to you? Oh, you know what? Never mind. I could share my screen, right?
Yes.
Okay. So one thing that I want to make sure that you understand. Hold on. Okay, share. I can't talk and share at the same time. All right, here we go. So I want to take a step back and give you an idea of what this USA spending search does and what it doesn't do based on some of the comments and questions we've received. This is a website that tracks obligations. So whenever a federal agency does something to a contract, any kind of action or modification on an existing contract, that's what is being tracked. So this is not forward-looking. This doesn't track opportunities or anything in the forecast, but it does track everything that is happening to current awards. Why is this important? Federal agencies tend to be creatures of habit. We buy ongoing things. We have recompetes. We tend to need similar things again and again. The best way to understand what a federal agency is going to be buying in the future is to understand what it's buying right now, who it's buying from, what are some contract terms, what are set asides, what is the location. And that will help you with your analysis. And each search you do will help you narrow down the result set and be really sharp and focused about the information you're getting. So Wendy showed you the world of possibilities, what you could search for. So let me try it to do another way. And I want to show you how you could take this information set and get it ready for analyzing. So Wendy showed you a NAICS code search, which is very common. I have a love-hate relationship with NAICS codes because they could be sometimes too precise and sometimes way too broad. For example, in the information technology sectors, you could do almost all the 5.1 NAICS codes, the 5.4 NAICS codes, and add some engineering to it as well. If I'm searching for cybersecurity, that could even be too broad, but maybe something like penetration testing, right? Testing. That is very specific. And by the way, when I'm sharing, I'm not looking at my chat. So Wendy Curtis, please interrupt me if if there's any questions.
One question before you start, Anna, because I
Yeah.
see it keep popping up in the chat. They asking what's the difference between FPDS and USAspending.gov?
Oh, great question. All right, so FPDS, the Federal Procurement Data Service, that is the system of record. This is where, on the government side, where the contracting officers have to record all of their transactions, contract action reports or CARs. So when a contracting officer performs an obligation or a change or an award, they put it into FPDS. FPDS is being retired, and the front-facing, the public-facing output of FPDS is now SAM.gov. We did a basic SAM webinar last month, which you could find on YouTube, and we'll be doing an advanced seminar on SAM next month, where we will be going through detailed ad hoc forming, creating your own reports. The Department of Treasury created USA Spending as a dashboard. It is intended for reporting, for congressional, for industry. What I love about USA Spending is you could get your hands on information super quickly. What I'm not a huge fan of is there's no login, so you can't save anything. If you want to do the same report or the same data set that I'm doing right now tomorrow, you're going to have to do it all over again. So it's super easy to use, very friendly, very quick, but it doesn't retain your information. So if you build very complicated things, you're going to have to rebuild them. All right, so we're going to search for a keyword. I put in penetration testing. If I want to do more than that, I could add, I don't know, cyber. I'm not going to do that, but you can. So it's going to search for things that are either. Actually, I'm going to leave them on for now. In the interest of time, because I want a short data set, because I don't want the download sitting there spinning its wheels, I'm only going to put in the last full fiscal year. I recommend doing the current full fiscal year and at least the last one, maybe two. If it's something that the government doesn't buy very often, major weapon systems, you may go back further. I don't want to narrow it down by anything else. And just because you can doesn't mean you should. So if you are a women-owned small business, you may just want to look at women-owned small businesses or the women-owned small business set-asides, but that might also limit the scope of the aperture that you're using. So if the government buys cybersecurity services and you're only looking at cybersecurity services with women-owned small businesses, you may be missing out on the bigger picture. So I just want to warn you about that. All right, so we picked our searches. I'm going to submit that search. What you see at the top is, in case you forget, in case you go back to get a cup of coffee and don't remember what you searched for, at the top is going to be your keywords. I'm going to make this bigger just in case. So all the parameters that you searched for will be across the top. Sorry, I will try to slow down. There's so much information. Thanks, Curtis. So all the parameters that you searched for will be here. These are, again, the dashboard, right? What Wendy showed you, all the fast ways to get quick analysis. But what you can also do is get all the line items, all of the data elements about these specific contracts into a spreadsheet, and then you could do your own analysis and build your own pivot tables. So what you'll see in this table view are individual line items for contracts, IDVs, which are sorry, indefinite delivery vehicles, or IDIQ contracts, grants, direct payments, and loans. We don't really get into that too much here. So what you can do is look at the top, and there's a download button here. If you ask for too much information, the download button will be gray, and then you're going to have to delete some of your parameters or narrow it down because it will limit you. And you click on download, gives you an option of if you want to look at your data based on award or transaction information. Here's the difference. Award is in the aggregate. If I award a contract for landscaping and the landscaper has to come 10 times a year to mow my lawn, that means there will be at least 11 documents there, right? One for the award document, and then one for each time they do a service and I pay them. So that's transaction. You get very detailed information. And if I change something, instead of coming every first Monday of the month, I say, no, you have to come every first Tuesday of the month. That's a modification. So that'll be in there. The good thing about transaction level information, you know as much as you possibly can about all of the actions, all of the changes that happen to a contract. But that also means it's 12 line items per contract, or however many there happen to be. Award information is 1 line item per contract. You won't capture all of the incremental details, but depending on what you're trying to understand at wherever you are in your market research journey, that may be good enough. The aggregate may be good enough. So I will, let's see, I will click on one of them just for simplicity. Will be award, because fewer line items means less time. And then they've been working on this for, I think, the last 7 years about which columns would you like to include. It's always been everything. So all you do is click everything, and then it'll prepare the download. And I will flip it back to Wendy for to continue with the presentation. Unless there's any
Thank you,
questions.
Anna. There are a few questions. I just want to reiterate on where the Q&A is. I saw a question in the chat. So if you are on your mobile device, there are 3 dots. Click on the 3 dots. There are 2 tabs. Click on the Advanced tab and then scroll to the bottom. That is where you will find the Q&A. And if you are on your desktop, laptop, click the 3 dots to your right, and it will open up for you to see the Q&A.
Thank you.
Let me come out of full view for a second.
Looking at, okay, so other questions. If it's an IDIQ and no transactions appear on the supposed due date for first delivery, would that suggest the vendor did not make deadline? Not necessarily. The government puts in their information about 3 months behind, depending on how we do our data entry. So none of this will be on time. It'll always be delays. So don't assume that something didn't happen. Usually it's a data entry inconsistency, not a delivery inconsistency. Okay. There's another one. There's another question that I missed. Okay. Does it sort by award type, example, simplified acquisitions? Yes. There are about 200 columns when you get the resulting spreadsheet, and it will include extent competed, it will include type of set aside, and you will see on the extent competed column, there will be something like competed under SAP or not competed under SAP. SAP means simplified acquisitions process, or which is under the simplified acquisitions threshold, which for most acquisitions is under $250,000. There are some deviations from that for emergencies, national security, and overseas contracts. Negative amount. Negative amount means a deobligation. That doesn't necessarily mean that the government goes to a vendor and says, give us back $200,000. Sometimes what that means is the government thought they were going to need 1 million masks, but the mandate has been lifted and masks are no longer required. So we thought we needed to obligate X amount of money to the contract because we can't spend it if it's not obligated, if it's not budgeted for it. But it doesn't necessarily mean that the spending is going to happen. So sometimes it's just an administrative procedure to de-obligate the money or move it from one budget item to another one.
We have another question, Anna. It says, does the FAA website have procurement opportunities? And it's actually 2 questions in one. Also, is SAM.gov the only platform that can aid one to obtain an opportunity from the Department of Veteran Affairs?
Yes, so SAM is the official database of record for opportunities. The only exemptions to that are things that are on existing contracts, like the GWAC, so task orders don't have to be published. And also items under the micro purchase don't have to be listed. But yeah, if it's between 250K, if it's over 250K and it's not on an existing IDIQ or vehicle, then it has to be on SAM.
Thank you. And with their question, does the FAA website have procurement opportunities? I didn't know if they were talking about the Federal Aviation Administration or if there was another FAA.
No idea.
Okay.
So the late question, if incumbent gets an extension, how long will it take to get the RFP out? All right, so the acquisition planning discussion is lengthy and outside the scope here. It depends on the reason for extension. Usually it takes, depending on the requirement, it takes the government months, sometimes years, to put it out on the street. So we don't start planning when something runs out. We start planning in parallel. So usually second, third year in, you're already thinking about the recompete, doing sources saw, doing market research. So it's not nose to tail. They're kind of contemporaneous. Okay. If they're late, can they be charged for being late? I don't know what that refers to. Okay. Can you remind me again where I find the PSC? The product service code is listed next to or under the NAICS code.
I was going to share my screen again too, Anna, because I saw there were a few questions. I think one of the questions asked about the end date or the end period. That information is here. I went ahead and put the NAICS code back in here. So you can find that in the middle screen. Also, your product service codes is to the filter side on the left. If you scroll all the way down, it's right underneath. Maybe I can't see it here. Right underneath NAICS code is the product service code. And you can type that information in just like the NAICS code.
Thank you. The National Acquisition Center, the VA NAC, yes, those opportunities are in USA, or I'm sorry, those contracts are in USA Spending. Yes. FAA, okay, so FAA is a tricky one. Not some agencies are exempt don't follow the FAR. FAA does not follow the Federal Acquisition Regulation, so they may not necessarily list their stuff in SAM. I'm sorry, in in SAM or in USA Spending. So you may want to do a search for FAA as a customer and find out. Usually agencies that are not receiving congressionally appropriated funds, they have their own processes.
And there was a question about, have you explored the process of obtaining a forecast, or have you already reviewed that procedure? We have not hosted a small business training concerning how to navigate VA's forecast of contracting opportunities. So
I will give you a 2-second training on how to get the forecast. Go to USASpending.gov and scroll to the bottom for agency forecasts, and you could get all the forecasts. Jesse, thank you. This is fun.
So I know I think we just have a little bit more slides. I see we're at 136. With the presentation, what Anna showed you previously on how to navigate and doing the download, this slide that you're currently viewing is what it would look like. You download the information and it's showing the difference with assistance, it equals those grants, but then you have the prime and the sub, and then you have the separate with the contracts with the prime and the sub. When you download the information and begin to analyze it. Did I miss anything on this one, Anna?
So let me show you what those actually look like, because people are asking about the contents of the spreadsheet. So I did save my search, so I'm going to share that screen. Hopefully I'm sharing the right screen. Yes, so if you could see my my window here. ignore the assistance. Those are grants. What we're going to look at today is contract prime awards. You could also look at contract sub awards for additional information for subcontracting opportunities. Those are reported by the prime contracts. But the prime awards, this is the government's reporting information. And I'll highlight really quickly a couple of things to look for here. So give me a second. I'm going to do some Excel magic. Control T converts the whole thing into a table. Lifesaver. And then you'll have, as I mentioned, about however many columns that is, right? 200 columns of data. So I'm going to scroll, give you a very high level, quick overview of things to look at. Award ID, PIID, that's the contract number. PIID is Procurement Instrument ID. You have the award in agency name. That is always useful. There are several columns where you're talking about the obligations or the money. I'm converting that to dollars so that it's easier to look at.
And
yes.
We only see your files. We're not looking at the spreadsheet.
Oh, I'm sorry. Here, let's try this again. Thank you. All right. I think when it started a spreadsheet, it just didn't share. Okay.
There we go.
Good. All right. Okay. So, let me go to the beginning, right? Okay. So, nope. Okay. So this is the file. I remember I searched for penetration testing. So first thing I do is Control T to make it into, oops, nope. I do not do that. Select everything. T, mix it into a table. That's fine. It's going to take a second. Hopefully I won't regret that. So while it's thinking about that, I'll show you a couple of things. There is the contract number, which will be the procurement instrument ID. There are several columns that talk about the dollar obligations. Total obligated amount is how much has been obligated in this contract. If you're looking at transaction-based information, it'll have current obligation to show you the transaction level. Hopefully my Excel will unmess itself up. There are several date columns when the current period of performance expires, and then the ultimate completion date, which is when all the options are exercised, when the contract ultimately expires. This really, my Excel just restarted. Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. Can't make this stuff up. All right, maybe I won't try to be clever with my spreadsheets today. Okay.
I always say technology.
All right. So is my spreadsheet showing?
No, not yet. It's still showing the presentation.
All right. Okay.
It says it's loading.
Okay. So
Okay.
I'm just going to make this bigger. I'm not going to convert it to a table because I probably had too much stuff on here. All right. So, so the obligation amount, and then all of the award expiration dates. And you want to look at the ultimate completion date because that's what the government is going to be gauging for when it's going to need to have its recompete. You have the awarding and the funding agency information. So that's the department, agency, and office. And it goes down from the high to the incremental level, right? Awarding agency name, sub-agency name, and then the office name. You care about the office. And also, there's a difference between awarding agency, which is where the contract is being written, and the funding agency. That's your end user or your customer. Oftentimes they are the same, but sometimes they are not. And you'll need to know if your customer and your contracting office are at a different location. For example, if the awarding agency is a VISN or NCO, National Contracting Office, and the funding office is a specific medical center. You'll want to make sure that you know exactly where they are. There, you'll have a lot of information about the vendor. You'll have information about the PSC codes and the NAICS codes, the vendor's location, the competition type. For example, the award type, if it's a contract or an IDIQ, or if it's a task order or delivery order. So if you want to know what kind of contract there is that is being funded for this requirement, you'll get to see it here. So whereas you don't necessarily see announcements for task orders, you will still see the spending, whether it's through a definitive contract or through a task order on a vehicle. You'll still be able to see the spending here. I'm running by really quickly here. So here's the NAICS codes and PSC codes. One of my favorite ones is the description of requirement, which is a little bit of a narration. What is listed in here? I think it's NAICS description. They keep moving it around. Oh, I know why I can't see it. It's on the, if you're looking at the description requirement, look at the transaction level, not the contract level spreadsheet. It'll be a lot more useful to you. And then, as I mentioned, the solicitation type and the type of set aside. So no set aside used. Here's a small business one, 8A sole source. And then extent competed will be here. What kind of competition it was. So simplified acquisitions, like I said, not competed under SAP or competed under SAP, or small business set-asides are typically full and open competition after exclusion of sources, because you're excluding everything that's not a small business and you're competing it that way. So we maybe have a whole other session on deciphering these spreadsheets, but like Wendy said in the beginning, there's a lot of information here, a lot of useful information, and don't try to ingest it all at once, but rather figure out your goal for a particular market research exercise, get there, then create a new problem statement and dig in based on that. Right. I'm gonna stop for questions or next steps here.
Yes, I see a few questions that came in the chat. I was answering questions from the Q&A.
The FAR does have a glossary of terms, and in fact, USA Spending, one of the other things I love about this is there's a pretty good dictionary here somewhere. I don't remember where it went. Find resource. Yes, under, I'm going to share my screen again. Sorry, is that okay? I'm jumping around a little.
Yes, because I'm still responding to questions in the Q&A.
All right, so I'm going to share this. So under find resources, data dictionary, you'll be able to see all of the terms. So every column heading has an explanation here. So type of set aside, I think. Yeah, it'll tell you exactly what it means and where to find it. And you could download it too. All right, so I think the next thing that I wanted to show you, if it's okay, Wendy, to jump to the recipient information.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Trying to.
So the other aspect we talked about the awards and tracking the spending, mostly from organized by agency. But another thing to look for is recipients. If you're looking to team, partner, or understand your competitors better, here's a way to find more information on federal contractors. So for example, I'm going to pick on a company, one of the large primes, because they have a one-word name called Peraton. Some of the big ones will have multiple different tax IDs, multiple locations, so they may be listed multiple times. What you'll see are little C and P, and sometimes there will be another designation, R. P is the parent company, C is the child, and R is a recipient. A recipient usually means grants, so not contracting. P is an umbrella organization, and C fall into one of the P umbrellas. So if we were to talk about a small business, such as, let's say, nope, they're not small anymore. I don't know, I'm just going to pick one, try to find a company that is small. So here's Paragon Professional Services. If you click on them, you will be able to find a lot of information about any particular company. Their small business designations, their transactions, and their top customers, as well as their top NAICS and product service codes. If you are in the early stage of your business where you're not sure what your NAICS code should be, take a look at some of the other companies in your industry, and that should be some useful benchmark information for you. One small but important point at the top, where it says trailing 12 months, if you want a more comprehensive data set, you could do all fiscal years, or you could look at any vendor by a particular year. So this is for all of their years. Again, it doesn't change this information, but it'll certainly change their timelines as well as their top customers here. If it is a parent recipient, you could click on its child recipients, and you'll see that they only have one. If you have a company name that you have somebody's business card and you look them up here and they're a child, you could also do the reverse and look at the parent holding company to find out really what they're about. All right. So that was the quick segue, but I think an important data point for you guys. So Wendy, turning it over to you for any questions, resources, or anything we didn't cover yet.
Thank you. I'm going to go through these slides. I want to make sure we didn't miss anything, because we did kind of jump around, but this was basically the information we wanted to show you anyway. Just coming back to remembering to prioritize your findings. There was a question that said that this is great information on the spreadsheet, but how does it help me to get a contract? There are many different ways that can help you to get a contract. Number one is, let's just say, we always mention that brief elevator pitch, where you have like 30 seconds to 120 seconds to basically sell your business to the buyer. Knowing about the buyer, and sometimes businesses do not know that, which is why we're offering this session today for those businesses that don't. That's a part of your market research. Knowing what the buyer buys, knowing who the buyer's customer is. I love food, so I like to use food as an example. Just because I sell pizza, you have Pizza Hut, you have Little Caesars, you have all these different companies that are out there. I need to understand who are their customers. I know the business. When I do a market research, when I do my competitive analysis, okay, these are my competitors, maybe even potential partners, but let's just say for right now, these are my competitors. Who are their customers? Their customers are individuals that like pizza, but what kind of pizza? What do they like on their pizza? What type of sauce do they like? What style of it do they like? That market research helps me to understand their customers. When you're thinking in terms of doing business with VA, understanding what services do VA provide to the veteran community, because that is who VA's customers are. So being able to look and see, for example, on the West Coast, every area does not purchase the same, like Anna was saying. When you look at that data, you may see that if your business, can operate, all over the country, that there may be a higher number of opportunities out there in California for whatever your business is selling, whatever service or product it is, because out there in, let's just say, Los Angeles, the veteran community, they have a bigger veteran community that may need, that is much bigger, so they need more medical centers. If you're in the medical field, let's just say for any type of medical devices that you're selling, maybe they need more of that. So you see that, okay, on the East Coast, not so much, so they're not purchasing as much. Well, then that helps you to be able to identify or define with that information that you've collected, what your next steps are going to be. So like Anna mentioned before, it's a lot of information, and it's not like you're going to be able to run the report and then see it right now, but if you're that type of person that likes to do research and likes to build, let's just say you have a board with a whole bunch of post-its, you'll be able to see, like Anna said, that pattern. And then that helps you to be able to identify, to plan your next steps on how to target that specific agency and move to the next steps of identifying those procurement opportunities. And when you're coming to them, I always like to use, and I see we're at 152, a situation that we had with, well, it's not a situation that we had, but a conversation that we had with a small business before, where they were selling a device to, or trying to sell a device to the medical center, but the medical center already was doing business with their competitor. And so the medical center, used their service, and they used the device, and they said, thank you for this opportunity, but we're going to stick with your competitor. And so the business wanted to know next steps. Okay, well, what does this mean? Somewhere in there with the market research, because the business was selling the same product as their competitor, next you want to identify, or should have identified, what is different about my product than my competitor? What exactly can I do? Sometimes it may require, some changes in other areas or some additions in other areas. That's for you as the business owner to make that determination when you're targeting that potential buyer. But being able to, when you're, briefing them out, saying, hey, listen, this is what I'm selling. I know you already have purchased it from my competitor. I know that they, it has X, Y, Z, but I'm telling you now that my product or my service is much better because we offer this. And as you can see, my competitor does not offer this, or this is what's better. Those kind of things, doing the market research and using USA Spending and SAM as a tool will help you to be able to identify those different opportunities. Excuse me. I'm sorry, I know that was very long. I want to get to a few other questions because I see we're at 154. So when you're prioritizing your findings, looking at the funding agency, small business use, expiration dates. I know someone had a question about that. Look at all of that information, pull it, then start plotting it out, analyzing it, putting it together so that you can see the bigger picture. Anna went over the profile information, so I'm not going to go through here. Data analysis, she went through that information, how to refine your searches. And she went through this as well, kind of showing you, and these are examples that you'll receive with the presentation tomorrow morning, how to clean up the information she showed you and how to analyze information. Disregard the left side of the screen. There's been a change since the last time this was screenshot. And then these are additional suggestions that you can read once you receive the presentation, because we basically just went through this information with you. We're also including in this presentation useful links. These are, for example, Pathfinder, the vendor tool. We do recommend, we've been recommending businesses, you want to increase your business visibility to the buyer, increase your visibility to the Department of Veteran Affairs, fill out the market research tool on Pathfinder. I always tell businesses, it's just like your capability statement. So therefore, if you have your capability statement developed already, it's just a simple copy and paste. It's going into the database so that during the market research, when the buyer is conducting market research, they're able to, your business is visible to them. This is our contact information. I included, I think, in the chat in the Q&A. But if you have any questions, you can always email us. It's ostbustratcom@va.gov, and these are our social network platforms on Twitter and LinkedIn. And our YouTube channel does house our recordings. So whenever you receive the link, I do recommend for businesses to go ahead and just bookmark it, so then you have access to it, especially if you're not able to attend our you're not able to attend a live session. You could go ahead and just go into our YouTube channel to view it. I want to take a look at a few more questions. I see we have 4 minutes left. How can we enter multiple NAICS or UEIs or contract numbers into each respective search field, or can you? Okay, so there was a question about that, and I'm going to share my screen for a second. There we go, Edge. And so the question was, can you enter more than one? Let me exit out. Can you enter more than one NAICS code? And you can. So I'll start off with the first one. When you select it, you can then select X, and you can, I'm just going to type in 42 and see what comes up. And then I'll select this one. And then I'll hit submit search. And you see at the top, it's searching these two NAICS codes that I put in for. Did I miss any questions, Curtis or Anna? Every time I share my screen, I can't see the chat anymore.
Yeah, so Wendy, go down to the recipient on the left and click the down arrow next to recipient. Yep, right there. So for UI number, type in like 123 and then hit search. And then type in 456 in the same line. And then hit search again. This is how you add multiple UEI numbers. That was the second part of that question.
Okay, thank you. Are there any more questions?
Curtis is having a great time in the chat. You guys really bring it. I love to see how awake and engaged everyone is. So I think for lessons learned for us, we'll do a spreadsheet, or we'll do a session about the spreadsheet, and we'll walk through that and building pivot tables for market research. I think that'll be a fun one for us.
Somebody asked, was it an update to Pathfinder? I'm not sure about your question, but that's all. Is there an update on Pathfinder.gov?
No, there hasn't been.
Yeah, I know they went to Salesforce, but I'm not sure if that was noticeable on the front end. So they did make a few changes to like adding additional words on there and saying I think when you first go on there, it says, are you a employee or are you a contractor? They added that in there. Yes, it is. It's pathfinder.va.gov is the website. And remember, that information is going to be included in the presentation. Oh, thank you, Anna. I see you added it to the chat. We have 1 more minute left. Are there, I can answer one more question.
That's all I see from that one.
When will the recording be available? Give us a little bit of time to like download the thing, but by next week, right? And I don't know about transcripts.
Okay, we are at 2 o'clock. I want to thank everyone for joining us today. If you have any questions, go ahead and send us an email, and we'll respond in about 24 to 72 hours. Please have a good rest of your Thursday. With 1 more day till Friday, and have a good one. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.